Welcome and thank you for joining our webinar today, Dissecting the Privileged Threat Landscape in 2017, the tongue twister, with featured guest speaker, VP and Principal Analyst of Forrester Research Incorporated, Andras Cser. You're also joined by BeyondTrust Senior Director of PAM Product Marketing, Scott Lang, who will run through a brief overview of BeyondTrust towards the end of the webinar, so please stick around for that. My name is Sarah, your webinar host today. A kind reminder to please submit your questions via the chat box in the GoToMeeting console anytime throughout the webinar, and we'll cover the bulk of the questions at the end during our Q&A time. And a reminder that if you do have questions that come in throughout the webinar and there's something that's timely with whatever Andras is talking about, please submit them and I'll be monitoring those throughout, and I can interrupt him during the presentation and ask him live. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Andras to the line. Andras, I know you plan to cover a lot today, so please take it away. Let's not stall any further.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay? First question.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. So let's jump in here. My name is Andras Cser. I look at privileged identity management as well as identity management and cloud security as well as some fraud management here at Forrester Research. And today I want to talk about the importance of privileged identity management, privileged password safe aspects, application to application passwords, threat management, understanding who is doing what on the session, understanding how you can escalate privileges on the endpoints, and that I will basically talk through basically the main points of our recently published Wave, Forrester Wave document. This is basically a vendor comparison. So I'm going to provide a little bit of a background in terms of the problem set and then walk you guys through the criteria in our Wave and really, that vendor comparison, talk about why we actually selected what we selected for our evaluation criteria, and then basically end on some future predictions and recommendations here. So why do people do privileged identity management? And it's really an interesting question, but and there's also been some shifts in answering this question, right? Typically, the four areas that we hear about are information risk. In other words, you are trying to protect data, assets, infrastructure, equipment, your reputation, goodwill, and so on, making sure that you're not losing data, right? That's pretty much today the biggest questions or the biggest motivation and driver for organizations we talk to when we ask them, hey, why are you adopting privileged identity management and automated? The second thing is compliance, and obviously this was a huge driver about 2 to 3 years ago. Things have changed since then, and we're seeing some folks kind of saying that, hey, compliance is a given, and if we automate privileged identity management, that it's going to be just an automatically kind of satisfied requirement. Obviously, efficiency, bottom left-hand corner, is all about how much time, effort, and work hours or work minutes you spend on managing privileges in the environment. In other words, if you have to hire 500 new admin users to manage your new cloud-based infrastructure-based workloads, or if you have to have a lot of manual steps basically in day-to-day operations and looking up passwords, waste a ton of time doing so, that is not a good way of using your admin's time. That's not an effective and efficient way of using your admin's time. So basically, it's all about how you do more. Efficiency is all about how you do more with less or the same level of resources, how you're supporting your company's objectives, moving to the cloud, moving data to the cloud, and in general a more distributed way of operations. And finally, flexibility. This is basically the most kind of mythical aspect of privileged identity management. as a result of being able to manage privileged identities better, faster, lower costs, you are going to encounter much less downtime, right? Much less problems, and you'll be able to use your IT infrastructure on-prem and cloud to support your core business objectives, i.e. be able to produce more widgets, serve more customers, basically be a more efficient film studio, for example, and the list goes on and on, right? So it's all about providing better agility, flexibility, and being able to deliver that in the business every day. So again, that's a huge motivation. Like I said, the most dominant and prevalent topic and driver today is the security, upper left-hand corner. Why, right? We see a ton of data breaches in this space. I don't have to kind of go into the news headlines, right? But it's definitely a big problem, and our estimate at Forrester is that 80% of all data breaches involve some kind of a misuse of administrative privileges. So obviously hackers and fraudsters know well, right, that if they want to kind of get as much information as they possibly can, they just have to go after the highly privileged accounts, right, because that is a way to kind of scoop up as much information as possible. Obviously, individual users, individual machines will have some level of data that may be marketable in the black market, IP, etc. But really the juiciest catch, if you will, and the biggest catch is always on the servers. It always lives in a big database, and if you're able to penetrate and compromise that database, you're able to get a lot more, a lot more information. Mitigating outsider attacks, right? So basically making sure that you have a control over how your privileged identities are managed involves understanding, where your passwords are, admin, root passwords, other privileged passwords to equipment, and that allows mitigation of outsider attacks. If things are not all over the place, right, these credentials are not all over the place, but you have some organization as to how you store and use and check out and what you do with these privileges, that is in and of itself a mitigation of outsider attacks. Anytime you have a cloud integration, we see API management being a must, right? So, this is true for cloud, as I said, and also for any kind of a living and breathing fabric of applications talking to one another on a corporate network. So when you have one application calling another application, then you definitely want to be able to understand how that caller application is going to authenticate to that called application. What kind of credentials are you going to be using for this? And basically how you present those credentials, how do you store those credentials, and how you make them not readable for hackers. So if you have flat files storing basically application to application passwords and you don't encrypt those, then that's a huge problem, because if a hacker compromises your caller box where you have the caller application that needs to read these usernames and passwords from a file, they can actually take those usernames and passwords for credentials and kind of use them in an unauthorized fashion to go to the called resource, connect to that database with all privileges, and just kind of siphon off the data. Obviously, behavioral analytics is big. Anytime we see folks just focusing on rules-based policies for who can do what and what constitutes anomalies. So if we see this specific, for example, IP range, or if we see this machine talking to that machine, that is bad behavior, right? This is a good start, and in some basically tactical situations it definitely makes sense, but you cannot absolutely maintain a large set of rules over a long period of time, right? A, because the rules will become obsolete, the network environment changes, IP addresses change, the whole kind of lay of the land changes, and it takes just an immense number of people to kind of understand these rules and be able to manage them, delete them. A lot of times we see, policies and rules describing bad behaviors in systems like indefinitely. Somebody put it in there 5 years ago, and now you're wondering who put it there, why they did it, and can you remove it? And we all know that people are not really willing to take the risk of removing or changing any of this. Network forensics is, in a lot of cases, we hear on inquiries that it's inadequate and slow. So what this means that is basically, yes, we do have network forensic tools that really promise to capture a lot of network traffic, basically snooping the network, understanding every single bit and byte and packet kind of traversing the network. In reality, unfortunately, this is not that simple. First of all, there's a lot of data that absolutely has nothing to do with privilege management, right, that you may or may not want to capture. Secondarily, you may have network compartmentalization and segmentation that really makes it difficult to deploy these network forensic tools to kind of capture everything. So tapping complex topology networks is very, very hard, right? That's just always a problem now that we can hear about. So privileged identity management is really something that can help with that challenge. So let's so this is the background, this is the threat landscape and the requirements. Now I'd like to jump into explaining our Wave methodology, explaining basically some of the criteria on our Wave, what we looked at and why we looked at things, right? So and there's going to be a few categories I'm going to basically just kind of summarize before moving on to the next category. So first area that we looked at is the password safe or password vault, or basically there's multiple names for this. What this really entails, right, is a secure database or repository in a hardened appliance / software delivery, software appliance, or even cloud-based delivery form factor that actually holds passwords, meaning root passwords, admin user passwords, in some cases keys, SSH keys, in some other cases even certificates. So we've seen people using this for multiple purposes. So passwords, secure password usage is very important, right? So once you stored all your passwords in a vault or a password safe, the next thing that you have to do is being able to discover basically the endpoints that you want to connect to that password safe, right? What that means is that if you have 100 different Linux boxes on-prem or in the cloud, you're more than likely going to have some asset management or LDAP directory or Active Directory type of entries for each one of these machines, right? So a privilege safe needs to be able to discover and have a good understanding of what the organization already stores about machines and resources and even users, right? About in the organization and connect to LDAP, Active Directory, even another database, and discover the assets, the boxes that need to be protected. So when we say we connect an endpoint to the password safe, what it means is that the password safe periodically connects to that endpoint and checks that the password that the password safe stores actually is still the root password or admin user or privileged password on the endpoint, A, and B, when a admin user checks out a password, they allow connectivity to that endpoint, and then when a user is done doing their job or their task using that sensitive password, or a preset period like an hour or 2 hours elapses, the password safe will connect to the endpoint and basically change in an automatic rota or kind of regime the endpoint, the admin password on the endpoint, right? So basically in the future you cannot use the same password as an admin user. So you always have to get it from the privileged safe. So you can probably see that this looks very easy and simple for 3 boxes, 3 endpoints connected to the password safe. But when you have thousands or tens of thousands of these endpoints connected, then you can have a problem. Next thing is high availability, right? So anytime you have password safes installed, you need to be able to ensure that you have some way of managing multiple password safes and then use them in a highly available fashion. So what that really means is that if you have an active set of data centers, right, or even 3 data centers running in active mode, if the password safe machine or app server or virtual appliance or physical appliance goes down for any number of reasons, all the remaining nodes should be able to service the entire network. So, you know, it's easy to see, right, that if there is no password safe or available, then you know, the whole operation of the environment and really any kind of fixing problems just kind of is in deep trouble, right? You're not going to be able to do anything in that environment because you don't have the credentials, root passwords, admin passwords to actually get to any machines or even at network equipment, right? So having a password safe be up and available at all times is very important. Supporting federation is really all about understanding if you have outsourced system as administrators, right, like a Wipro or IBM doing sysadmin jobs in your environment, they need to be able to check out passwords from the vault, which means that their users need to be authenticated to the vault. That really you can also import all those users, all those business partner passwords and usernames into your own Active Directory, but more than likely you may have to use some kind of a federation support, a federated protocol like SAML or OAuth to authenticate business partner users of whom you have no AD records on your own to the vault. Application to application support, so we talked about this. This is all about how you're able to check out passwords from the password safe, what kind of languages you're able to use. So if you have a .NET environment or a Java environment or using web services or JSON calls or other APIs, how are you able to actually integrate the checking out of passwords or other credentials from the password safe, what languages you have available for you. Risk-based, role-based access control is all about how you can slice and dice both the administrative users that log on to the password safe to retrieve privileged passwords and credentials, as well as how you're able to segment and partition the actual endpoints, right? So, and really how you're able to connect admin groups, groups of admin users to groups of endpoints, right? This is all about role-based access control. We looked at this. It's actually a fairly important element of making sure that you don't have over-privileged users in the environment, and every admin user can only look at one, what they need to be looking at, but not more. Because again, a lot of times these sensitive usernames and passwords, privileged usernames and passwords, are distributed and granted on a need to know basis, right? So if you are, say, a system administrator for, let's say, at a bank for the retail banking business, you should not have access to machines in the commercial banking or the mortgage business, right? That is just not good, because that's the thing that can lead to data loss and separation of duties violations. So the next thing is that we kind of look at is privileged session management, right? So and recording. So after the administrative user basically takes out and checks out the password or the credential from the password safe and goes to the endpoint that they need to manage to do whatever operation is on, you have to have a good understanding as to what you actually do with that password. So obviously, on the endpoints, you have logs and you have some level of auditing information on the endpoint that kind of indicates who did what. But in a lot of cases, if you're using just a generic privileged account, you're only going to see that the root user has been doing X, Y, and Z, right? You're not going to be able to necessarily correlate that it was Andras who actually checked out that password between 2 and 3 p.m. right on that day, and he was the root user at that point in time. So again, what you do with the password is very important. So how we see folks dealing with the privileged identity management vendors dealing with this is being able to provide recording functionality. So what this means, right, is that after you check out the credential from the vault, either you log on using an SSH terminal like PuTTY or others into a concentrator or proxy server that's in the middle, and that proxy records everything in a command line session, right? Or you're being given basically access to the endpoint and directly, and on the endpoint you're running some kind of an agent that does the recording and does the capturing of all the commands. But what this really boils down to is that on an SSH session you need to have recording of what the admin user actually types, the commands they issue and execute. So if someone basically accidentally wiped the entire root file system, that's not a good thing. But if you have SSH recording, you are able to kind of go back and understand who did it, what caused that outage, and so on. And also, you also have to be able to understand, what the system responds with, right? So not only the input, but also the output. So it's basically an interactive recorded session of keystrokes that you should be able to capture. This applies to SSH as well as to other protocols like Telnet, TN3270, and various other command line protocols. There's also, so the next step is basically how do you limit what a user, an admin user actually can or cannot do on the endpoint, what kind of commands they can issue, etc. We also looked at which basically solutions and PIM components allow you as the owner or as a customer of the solution to limit what an end user actually can do on the endpoint. In other words, you may not have on a Cisco router capabilities to limit what a user can do because it may not support any kind of entitlements or any kind of differentiated rights for users. But in a privileged identity management tool, you may be able to say that, hey, this user can only issue these 3 commands. They may be able to bring up an interface, bring down an interface, or make certain changes to the routing policies, but they may not be able to restart the whole router, or they may not be able to basically insert brand new things or delete the entire routing table, right? So certain commands may be allowed, certain commands may be disallowed, and optionally, when a user types a disallowed command, you may also set up policies in the privileged identity management session monitoring and recording tool that you actually terminate the session. So you kick out that admin user, write an entry into log file, and maybe even warn or alert somebody that, hey, this admin user tried to do something they were not supposed to do. Using your own tools as well as basically web interfaces for sessions. What this means is that some companies want to allow their users to basically use PuTTY, any kind of terminal, graphical terminal emulator, RDP client, basically to access their to be administered machines. Other organizations, basically, especially if you have to open up your doors and firewalls to third-party outsourcer admins, they only want to just provide a web interface that basically the external parties may authenticate to, maybe two-factor authentication, and then all the actions, so you have a web-based terminal emulator, a web-based RDP emulator, where you basically are recording all the sessions there, and this basically has the benefit of not having to open up that many ports on the firewall to allow these external workforce members, contractors, and outsourced admins to come in. Obviously, there's indexing, searching, and performance. Indexing means that you don't have to kind of look through 5 hours of recorded videos of either command line or graphical sessions, but you're able to kind of find basically jump to index points and really kind of understand the login, logout periods, and get a session information. Searching, being able to search for a certain string in all the recorded sessions, which is also not a trivial thing, especially if you look at thousands of hours of recorded sessions, and obviously performance. So basically, as long as we are demonstrating it on a laptop and you're showing somebody 3 hours of recorded sessions, it's all easy. But when you have thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of hours of recorded session information, then indexing, searching, even reviewing may present performance challenges. So that's something that you got to have available at your fingertips. OCR, optical character recognition, it's all about working with graphical user interfaces and graphical windowing systems, and basically being able to recognize commands, recognize window titles and commands type, and provide more granularity. So that really means that you can search sessions that have been recorded graphically in the past. Host access control. So basically what this really means, this is the third very important area of privileged identity management. It's all about privilege escalation and really locking down an endpoint, i.e. a desktop system, laptop, or desktop or PC of an end user, right? And making sure they're not able to kind of really render their installed image unusable because they installed some unauthorized package or they've introduced some virus, do registry changes, etc. And then you also have the equivalent of this being able to do this on servers, right? So how you're able to allow normal users on servers, may they be Windows or Linux, to actually log in as themselves, and when they need to do certain actions, maybe reboot the box or kind of mount a drive or do a tape backup, that require actions that require admin privileges, to actually escalate their access rights for the users temporarily, allow them to do those actions, and then basically become normal users. So this is a very important element of need to know and limiting user rights and just kind of providing least privilege to your admin users. We also looked at registry change control. This is a very important thing. How programs are changing your registry on Windows can have a big impact on the health of operations. AWS and Azure console support, how you're able to actually manage consoles of various cloud service providers, infrastructure service providers, what level and depth of support you have there in terms of who can do what in those environments. And then Unix support, and really finally privilege escalations. I thought about this, and whitelisting and blacklisting commands. So really establishing a list of commands that any user can use, or even a normal business user can run, because we know that these commands belong to like Office productivity suites or an email program, and then blacklisting other commands that we are fully aware that either they are malicious or they basically fall outside the scope of what a user should be doing, right? So maybe you don't want somebody to run Spotify on their work issued, corporate issued laptop or desktop. So basically limiting who can do what. Cloud support was a really interesting requirement, and again, the cloud is actually working towards really reshaping a lot of aspects of privileged identity management, because in the past, right, we had to, we had on-prem boxes, and then the number of on-prem boxes, and that we had to manage, the endpoints we had to manage, were relatively stable, right? I mean, you kind of power up and down machines, but in general, the number of production systems really stays constant, right? You don't have really too much of a fluctuation of bringing up new boxes basically to meet demands. You had scaling, and you had a lot more capacity than you actually needed to be able to respond to spikes. And obviously privileged identity management, as well as other security and non-security disciplines, actually have been licensing these endpoints these solutions based on the number of endpoints that the solution supported, right? So again, that was the past. In the future, we are starting to see more creative ways to price privileged identity management solutions. You may have per hour or utility-based billing. How many hours you've been managing an endpoint, how many endpoint instances you've been managing, and kind of have a lot more granular view, a lot more fluctuation in the unit price, if you will, or the hourly price of managed endpoints. In addition to this different pricing area, we also looked at in this wave SaaS in terms of how you're able to support business users in software as a service types of applications, realizing that in a lot of cases companies are actually using PIM platforms to manage highly privileged users in SaaS applications like Salesforce or ServiceNow or Workday or any kind of a SaaS business application. So anytime you have shared accounts in an environment, you can use a privileged identity management solution. And we kind of looked at the breadth of support for these types of systems out of the box. We also looked at security analytics and security incident and event monitoring integration in the platform, how you're able to capture events from the PIM platform into a SIM solution, what is available, what kind of productized integrations are there. We looked at identity management integration, what kind of identity platforms, for access, recertification, access governance, and periodic understanding of who has access to which admin account you have. So basically looked at productized integrations in this space. Privileged identity governance is one of the key requirements that we see here. So having a good enough understanding and campaigns where application owners or department heads or bosses of admin users, if you will, want to have a repeating view and a repeating campaign to kind of make sure that they know who has access, admin access to which box, and if a user already left the sysadmin organization or there's been some changes, make sure that users do not have unauthorized or non-need-to-know users do not have excessive access or non-least privileged access to any kind of sensitive systems. Again, limiting your exposure, limiting the security breach. Probably is the important message here. And then again, infrastructure as a service support, so Azure, AWS, secure token service, to what degree you're able, the privileged identity management solution is able to take secure tokens, how you can manage the console of an Azure or AWS, who can do what in the console, how well you're able to kind of limit and control that and write policies for that in the privileged identity management solution. And again, how intuitive and modern the interface is. It's basically what kind of, is it complex, simple, is this something that that's in line with requirements that we see today. So again, very important to note that even though privileged identity management is a discipline that is largely facing admin and IT kind of techie users, even these users are demanding much slicker and more up-to-date, more modern user interfaces in the light of consumerization. And then we also looked at a number of things of all the vendors' strategy and market presence. We also evaluated vendors' development plans. Obviously, this is very important. A vendor needs to be able to communicate their development plans, their roadmap to their customer base, be able to stay on top of trends and have a strong set of plans. Again, we looked at various things such as forward-going cloud support. We looked at mobile device support plans. We looked at plans for the safe, password safe, the session monitoring, as well as host access control. So kind of fairly varied and deep understanding of development plans. We obviously interviewed 3 customer organizations for how that the vendor provided us, how satisfied they were with the vendor solution, as well as we kind of blended in some some interviews and conversations and inquiries on our own to understand and gauge basically how satisfied customers are with the solution, what they actually do, how they use it, and so on. And then we looked at the global partner ecosystem, meaning how many implementation deals the vendor has had in North America, Central and South America, EMEA, so Europe and Middle East, and in the APAC region. So again, if there is a partner ecosystem behind a solution, that is a very good sign. That is the thing that actually guarantees a lively kind of discussion and a buzz, if you will, around a privileged identity management product. We also looked at the solution development strength and sales strength. What this really means is that, you know, we kind of looked at the number of developers ratio to the number of total employees, and also number of salespeople selling the product to number of total employees, and the higher it is, the better. Obviously, this is better for, you know, small or medium-sized vendors than the large ones, but this also kind of illustrates how, you know, kind of how much skin in the game, if you will, a vendor has in selling a solution. If it's a large vendor and has 100 other products, you know, we expect that vendor to be able to less focus, you know, with a laser sharp kind of vision on, laser sharp focus on their privileged identity management portfolio, because they have other, in some cases, conflicting priorities as well. So again, dedication and devotedness, if you will, to your product was something there. And then we looked at revenues. Obviously, you know, we want to see a vendor making money off of this, how fast the revenue is growing, install base. So this is always the number of production organizations, so paying customer organizations in production, number of paying customer organizations in production, meaning, you know, POCs are good, you know, really it's a great idea to see a lot of, you know, POCs and a lot of discussions, but at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding, right? So when you have customers that actually paying and purchase the solution and are using it in production, that's when that's really the indication that this is a solution that has strength and mindset in the market. Okay. This is the wave, so this is the drum roll here, right? You know, I wouldn't want to necessarily talk too much about this. You're going to see this. We look at the current offering areas, as I said, market. Current offering being the password vault, privileged session monitoring, host access control, cloud support, and some other areas. And we kind of looked at these capabilities in demos of vendors, as well as we gained independent access to the vendors' own environments in a way that I was able to log on in an unsupervised, unfettered kind of mode into all these environments and play around with them. So I kind of did that. That score is reflected on the vertical axis of this chart. The horizontal axis is basically strategy. I talked about that. That was a previous slide. So, you know, future plans, strength of the solution, development and sales strength, and really some additional partnership capabilities. And then the size of the bubble are things like market presence. So this is the revenue and install base composite. So bigger the bubble, the more install base the vendor has. So clearly, you know, I think this fall, so the vendors fall into 4 groups, if you will. Challengers, you know, the white area, contenders, basically in the lower echelon, so in the basically not the bottom, but the lower 25th quarter of vendors, strong performers falling into the 50 to 75th percentile, and then leaders in the top quarter, top 75 to 100 percentile. So that is the result of our wave. You can take a look at this. Some of our predictions in privileged identity management. So definitely all vendors are moving forward and supporting infrastructure as a service and platform as a service types of capabilities. Software as a service will basically, and software as a service form factor, privileged identity management solutions are coming to the market. So not just on-prem based installations, but also, you know, cloud-based delivery factors. Supporting infrastructure and IoT, so connected devices, Internet of Things devices is going to be even more important. Managing these devices, sometimes you don't have accounts in them. You have to use just a generic password, and you have to manage that password. Business user privileges management is again expanding rapidly, you know, trying to kind of manage Salesforce users, business users, or Workday users, or whatever business application you might have, Office 365 admin users, and so on. Behavioral and continuous authentication on sessions. This really means that if for some reason, God forbid, the password to the vault, the password safe gets lost, or you have a hacker logging in to the password safe in an unauthorized fashion, which may happen. You know, we recommend two-factor authentication, but let's say a hacker logs onto the vault, they are starting to issue commands. They access the endpoint, and they start to issue commands that may be completely out of line. They're starting to kind of, instead of just rebooting the machine or kind of bringing an interface up or down and taking a tape back up, or you know, doing some normal activities that fits the profile of that user, they start basically dumping out the database contents, right? That's something you definitely don't want to have, and you want to be able to alert and look at those activities. So, and even if you see that for an extended period of time, so the user is behaving out of their profile, then you may want to also terminate the session. This is what continuous authentication is. And then periodic rectification and recertification of privileges, access governance and access request management type of capabilities. So it's again the governance process of understanding who has access to what, using some additional information such as profiles, identity intelligence, as well as you know, log data to see that, hey, maybe this user has access to these 10 boxes, they have admin access on these 10 boxes, but in reality this user is only accessing these 3 or 4 machines and performing system administration on a continuous basis. These other 5, 6 machines he never logs into. Maybe we should consider revoking this user's admin privileges on these other 5 boxes because they don't need them. And then again, supporting more and more endpoints. So again, there's never an end to all the endpoints that vendors need to support. So mainframes, even mid-range systems, cloud consoles, deeper support for these. So again, endpoint support and user interface redesign is always something that vendors talk about when they talk about roadmaps and future plans. So basically, the cloud, this is just a quick overview of why the cloud is important. Again, the uneven handshake is basically the CISO is basically faced with a cloud service provider dictating much of the security to them, and privileged identity management is a way to actually control this and provide your own insulation layer from some of the challenges and some of the problems, some of the excessive administration that your private or public the cloud provider can give you. Some of the challenges, you know, with cloud security, and again, privileged identity management will help allaying these concerns and solving these challenges. Basically, looking at the cloud as a less secure environment than on-prem, definitely not true. We see a lot of folks going to the cloud and getting better security out of cloud environments, and multi-cloud deployments proliferating. So privileged identity management solutions that have cloud platforms as their endpoints allow you to manage your clouds in a much more comprehensive way, in a much more unified way than if you're just kind of working with an AWS console separately from an Azure console, from a Google Cloud console, and so on. Threat detection absolutely is not optional. It has to be built in, so the whole session monitoring allows you to do that in administrative, basically session recording, management, searching, and understanding the lateral movement and data exfiltration and then protecting against that is something that privileged identity management will do. Again, the baselines are important. Consistent policies are important here, and being able to kind of manage hundreds or even thousands of endpoints in a consistent manner in the cloud is very important. Automation is clearly something that you have to do, so the discovery of these endpoints and the application of good privileged identity management practices to them is very important. And then again, the baseline creation, profile creation, and then detecting anomalies from the baseline is something that we hear about. Some vendor selection guidelines, right? I'm not going to go too deep into this. We talked about most of these things, but coverage for multiple platforms, API protection and integration with various BCDR, business continuity disaster recovery platforms, identity access management, SIM integration, and other tools is very important. Some of the predictions and best practices. So we see IT operations most of the time owning privileged identity management. Simplification of the environment and making it consistent is very important. So you kind of have to clean things up, especially if you're using command line based privileged identity management. Treating high availability as a priority. Again, safe is down, you're down. You can't fix production issues. Basically define audit logs ahead of implementation to please auditors and compliance. So you kind of have to know what you need to deliver to compliance and not retrospectively kind of fit that into your upgrades regime. And then basically sourcing outsourcers, partners should be the same as your employees, and creating a role-based access control framework for them as well. That is kind of joined at the hip with the RBAC framework for your own employees. So with that, I'd like to conclude my part of today's presentation and hand it over to Scott.
Hey, terrific, Andras. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it, and for sharing your insights on today's webinar. Everybody out there, thanks for sticking with us as well. Andras's presentation went through a tremendous amount of information, great best practice guidance, information on building, deploying, managing a privileged infrastructure. What I thought I would do is just take a couple of minutes, maybe 5, and go through how Beyond Trust can really help you accomplish that. So we're very pleased to have been in the leaders area of the Forrester Privileged Identity Management Wave that you saw a few moments ago, along with some other great companies. And we believe that we've got pretty strong capabilities in our platform to really help you deploy a lot of what Andras talked about in his presentation. I'll dispense with a lot of this, but just to set the framework here, a traditional attack chain is going to have threats with regard to privilege come from 2 directions. Your traditional insider threat, trusted insiders, or outsiders you've allowed to be insiders, or external parties as well who seek access both to systems in order to do privileged work in an organization. Now, unfortunately, some organizations, or rather some users, can misuse or abuse their privileges, whether they're trusted or insiders or otherwise, or external parties trying to get hold of those privileges. But ultimately, what they're trying to accomplish is some lateral movement, probing for opportunity, and then to accomplish some sort of data theft. We really think there's 3 immutable laws of privileged access management that tie really closely to what Andras was talking about. The first, as I mentioned, is that employees and other insiders really have unnecessary access. Something like 66% of insider misuse incidents are driven by privilege abuse. And as Andras said in his presentation, 80% of data breaches involve the abuse or misuse of privileged credentials. So credentials tend to be shared and unmanaged in far too many situations. But third, I want to abstract it for a moment and talk about IT assets. Sometimes those assets can communicate unchecked. So desktops, laptops, servers, applications all communicate in open pathways to sensitive assets and data in an organization. And so we've looked at the user-specific element, we've looked at credentials, now let's look at assets. And what ends up happening is that in half the cases of all exploits from system vulnerabilities happen between 1 and 100 days after vulnerability is published, with the median around 30 days. So, if you are delegating access or elevating rights to a specific application or a system through your privileged identity management deployment, you could be exposing the organization to undue risk if that target asset is not healthy. So that's what ends up happening, right? So you end up getting into situations where several weak points happen in the attack chain, and that's precisely what we at BeyondTrust seek to help you overcome, are all of those fail points in the attack chain, stopping external threats from getting into the environment through great vulnerability management patching, stopping internal threats from escalating privileges through privilege elevation and delegation management, and privilege password and session management, which then disallows lateral movement, the probing for opportunity, and ultimately data theft. And then we combine that with great threat and behavioral analytics throughout the life cycle of privilege activity and sessions. Okay, so who are we? So we are a cybersecurity software company that has a mission to help you control your user privileges and passwords so they can't be used inappropriately or in a data breach. That is the sole purpose of our organization. And we combine 3 primary product lines or capabilities to help you accomplish that. First, privileged access management, as we're talking about today. Second, vulnerability management to help give you visibility into the IT assets in your environment, whether they be cloud-based, mobile, on-prem, whatever. And then combine that with threat and behavioral analytics to have a full and complete picture of users, assets, and their behaviors. We deliver our PowerBroker privileged access management platform that helps you accomplish all of these objectives. 3 primary solution areas within the platform. First is enterprise password security. This is what Andras talked about, privileged credential management, privileged session management. We're giving you the accountability and control over credentials and sessions, whether they be apps, databases, devices, SSH keys, cloud interfaces, virtual or other. Next is endpoint least privilege. This is the removing of admin rights from Windows and Mac end users, removing excessive user privileges, and then controlling applications on those endpoints. And then third, server privilege management. This is everything that we do to provide control and accountability over Unix, Linux, and Windows systems by fine-grained policy control over root accounts and more, root and admin accounts. Now, all of those 3 green boxes that you see on the top half of the slide right there are actual solutions that we deliver right now to customers. And these are fairly similar to what a lot of the other vendors can deliver in their capabilities in privilege as well. What sets us apart is what you see below the line there, what's in the gray box called Beyond Insight. And that's 4 capabilities we deliver as part of our platform that's very unique to us. First is great asset and account discovery. Because our platform has a heritage in the vulnerability management space, provide excellent scanning capability, discovery of privileged accounts and users, the automatic onboarding of them so that you can apply policies across the board. Second, threat and vulnerability intelligence and behavioral analytics, not just consuming information from our own vulnerability scanner, but also competitive scanners, and then correlating that with information like from next generation firewalls, National Software Reference Laboratory, other threat databases, Metasploit, others, so that you have a great picture of asset health that you can combine with the privileged user behavior to have a full and complete picture of, again, assets, users, and accounts. Great reporting and connector framework that allows you to present reporting to whatever stakeholder in the organization, and then a connector framework that allows you to export data to SIEMs or ITGRC solutions, or even potentially help desk solutions. And then centralized policy and action response, right? This is all that you can accomplish with the platform as a central console. I've included some capabilities in here that we offer for each of the solutions within the platform. Let you review that on your own time. Some of the benefits that we offer for our platform, first is zero gaps. You know, instead of deploying a bunch of disjointed tools that you have to stitch together with some coding and configuration and such, I mean, we deliver you a single framework of capabilities that is already pre-integrated, and you buy and deploy what you need when you need it instead of all of it at once. The products are, by their very nature, deeply integrated because they're built within this framework. Gives you better intelligence, gets you out of a silo, helps you share information and intelligence across the IT estate, not just within the system itself. Great single view to manage policy. Ultimately, the objective is to provide a faster time to value for you and to help you potentially even consolidate vendors and achieve a greater total cost of ownership. We've received great validation from customers, partners, industry analysts, and more that really seek to support you know, what our position in the market is. And as I mentioned before, you know, Forrester has been you know, a great source for that. You know, approaching 400 employees now here at BeyondTrust, 4,000 customers, privately held, offices worldwide, driven by innovation, as you can see here in terms of the patents that we've been awarded and those that are pending, and great representation of customers across all key verticals. You know, so if I could kind of summarize here with just 3 quick bits on this slide as to why consider PowerBroker to address some of your privileged identity management needs. You know, I'll look at that diagram on the right, which looks kind of like the game sign and back when I was a kid. But it's really, as I said, a very comprehensive platform, addresses every privileged identity management scenario. The capabilities within it are integrated, and it gives you a level of intelligence beyond identity and privilege that you can't accomplish through another type of solution. So I want to thank you for listening into our presentation today. Sarah, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Thanks, Scott. Ooh, a lot of information, you guys, in 60 minutes. Let's jump right into questions. We have a couple of minutes left. Before we do, if you could take a second and answer a quick poll. You know, here at BeyondTrust, we want to make you guys security rock stars, I like to call them, and we'd love to help you with your privileged access needs. So if you would be interested in engaging with one of our security experts further, please select yes, and we'd love to chat with you or take you through a one-on-one demo of PowerBroker or even Retina. So let us know and select yes. I'm going to leave this up, and let's dive into a couple of questions. Andras, this came in for you. What are the general headaches when implementing PAM and IGA besides executive and end user buy-in?
Sure. Typically, you know, creating the RACI chart, right? So scoping and RACI chart creation, these are all things that we hear about. Governance problems are always there. So who has access to what and why, and answering those questions, and then that leads to a number of political challenges as well. But more than anything, really getting a good grip of what systems you have, who controls those systems, how you actually separate writing security policies versus from implementing those security policies is always a big thing. And then really your log retention and recorded session retention schedule, you know, how long you're retaining your recorded sessions for what systems, again, requires a lot of planning. And then really when are you going to kind of alert on suspicious activity? How you actually do that is always an important question out there. So definitely a problematic thing from a lot of customers.
Time for one more question for you, Andras. How do you see user behavior analytics and PIM interplay in the future?
Sure. So basically, as I said, a lot of times hackers or fraudsters check out, you know, gain access to the vault, and they check out passwords from the vault in an unauthorized fashion, and they kind of go to the endpoint and start doing bad things. Really understanding what a normal admin user would do on that session, and really, if you see some anomalies, being able to alert, monitor, and even basically terminate those sessions is something that we'll see. That's one thing, and I will also say that we might be seeing some more canned profiles being served and being provided by the vendors in this space as well. So kind of having a better starting point, providing a better starting point for end user implementation when you have software as a service, form factor delivery of privileged identity management solutions. That is definitely going to be an easier way of kind of providing profiles and shared information, intelligence on data, provide, kind of injecting some human intel, threat intelligence types of information into the vault, as well as the session monitoring. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, guys, time to wrap this up. A kind reminder that you will receive an email with a link to the recording and the slides shown here today within 2 business days from now, and it will come from communications@beyondtrust.com. So please be sure to add that email address and whitelist it to your email program so that you receive it without interruption. A big thanks again to Andras and Scott and to all who attended live today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you at the next webinar. Goodbye. Take care. Thanks again.